Okay, so let's wait for a few people to turn up. And we have a few people who've turned up. All right. So, very good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's lesson. We'll be solving quite a lot of questions today. So, today we'll be solving a mixed bag of questions from reading comprehension to critical reasoning to sentence correction. We'll be doing all that, right? Um, Okay. Before we jump straight into the questions, allow me to give you an introduction of the Unacademy platform. Unacademy, as you already know, is perhaps India's largest learning platform today when it comes to preparing for various sorts of competition exams. You are on the channel for Let's Crack management exams like CAT, GMAT, and MAT, and the likes. I am Prankur Arora. I am a trainer and a coach. I've been a trainer and a coach and in the learning industry for a better part of the last couple of years, where I've even had the opportunity to train employees of different organizations like Marico, Becton Dickinson, Interglobe, PGCIL, FMC Corp, and many more different industries, different segments of people. I am also a published author. So I wrote this book called It's Not Funny, right? It's a work of satirical fiction. So if you're fond of fiction or if you're fond of dark sardonic humor, be sure to check it out. It's available on Amazon. It also has the book also garnered positive reviews and blurbs from the likes of Viswapati Sarkar, Papa CJ, right? If you know of these humorists, these greats in the industry. I also hold advanced certifications in facilitation from an American organization called Leadership Management International. LMI is perhaps the world's largest organization working in the domain of leadership, transformational leadership. And I run a production house called Tamasha Entertainment where we do quite a lot of things. We're trying to build a channel for creative arts excellence in the country. So we've been producing films and theatrical shows and events for a while, right? So that's pretty much about me. Welcome aboard this journey of learning various concepts of verbal aptitude as well as reading comprehension. So there are two things that Unacademy really focuses on immensely that helps it stand out and helps it actually enhance the value proposition for you as learners. One is the pedagogy that an academy follows, which includes stuff like giving you access to live classes on a daily basis, where you're chatting with the educator in real time. All sorts of discussions and doubt clearing sessions, they're happening in real time on the platform. Plus, we conduct a lot of live tests and quizzes, mock tests, which are on the same pattern as your main competitive exam. And then we give you in-depth insights. We give you reports into your performance, right? Complete analysis that will help you develop perspective about your learning journey, where you're going right, where you're not going all that right. What can be improved, what cannot be improved. Stuff like that. For example, the time you're spending on a reading comprehension question versus the time you're spending on a critical reasoning question, the time you're spending on para jumbles and para summary versus the time you're spending on a sentence correction question, stuff like that, which can help you actually gain a lot of perspective and do some course correction if need be. All the courses on the platform, they're all structured courses. They're up to date with the syllabus, and they're created by subject matter experts, credible people who've worked in this domain for a long time. Plus, with one subscription, you get access to anything and everything, all sorts of live and recorded courses that you can access from the comfort of any of your devices. So as I was saying, quite a lot of educators in different domains doing very well, who've successfully mentored quite a lot of people into top tier business schools. As I was saying, you can experience live classes on the platform for free and then decide for yourself whether this is something that you really want to add to your learning journey or not, because there are quite a lot of benefits, extra benefits that come along with a subscription to the platform. New batches, new courses, they keep on going live on the platform on a daily basis. Language is never a barrier because we've got teachers, educators teaching in vernacular languages as well, right? Languages like Tamil, Hindi, Malayalam, uh, Bengali, right? So we've got different regional languages, and if you're not as comfortable with English or Hindi, it's all right. We've got educators probably teaching in your regional language too. Plus, the complete ownership of the schedule is left to you, right? So you know what is the most comfortable time for you. So you enroll in the kind of courses you want to enroll into. You decide what the kind of educators you want to learn from. So you decide your own schedule. You personalize your own schedule, and then the platform sends you those timely reminders and push notifications so that you don't really miss out on anything that you set your eyes on. As I was saying, all the interaction on the platform, it happens in real time. Everything happens in real time. Doubt clearing also happens in real time. Plus, there's a feature on the platform where we launch a lot of live polls during our classes, right? So if you participate in live polls, you get a chance, you compete for a place on the leaderboard, right? And if you get your answer right, your name is broadcast to anybody and everybody who's watching that lesson. uh, I've already covered the feature of live tests and quizzes. Plus, there's another thing which is that you'll see during the lesson today that I'll be scribbling quite a lot of things on this document, on this course material, right? So all these documents with the educator annotations, whatever it is I write, right? The documents with those annotations are made available to you as resources that you can revise and revisit anytime whatsoever once you subscribe to the platform. Now, coming to the different kinds of subscription models, right? So you can clearly see that as the time period of the subscription goes up, the cost of the subscription per month is going down dramatically, right? So I would recommend, we all understand that any kind of learning journey is a long learning journey. It's a lengthy learning journey preparing for a CAT exam or any kind of management exam. So I would recommend that you opt in for a longer time period. Give yourself that opportunity of time to develop the comfort level with the platform, with the educator, and with the course subject, right? Because understand that this is not physical learning anymore, this is virtual learning. So you have to really develop that comfort level with the platform and the educator as well in order to reap a lot of benefits, right? So give yourself that opportunity of time. I would recommend that you opt in for a longer time period, but regardless of whether you opt for any kind of subscription, you can use my first name, which is Prankur, Prankur, and you'll get an extra 10% off on any of the subscriptions that you go for. Having said that, let's begin with today's drill. We are starting with a critical reasoning question, right? So read this and hit me up on the chat with your answer before I move into the explanation. Installing scrubbers in smokestacks and switching to cleaner burning fuel are the two methods available to Northern Power for reducing harmful emissions from its plants. Scrubbers will reduce harmful emissions more than cleaner burning fuels will. Therefore, by installing scrubbers, Northern Power will be doing the most that can be done to reduce harmful emissions from its plants. Which of the following is an assumption? So, this is an argument construction question where you have to find the assumption. So figure out which of these has to be true for the conclusion to be intact. Right? Therefore, by installing scrubbers, Northern Power will be doing the most that can be done to reduce harmful emissions. One of these assumptions has to be true for this conclusion to make sense. Another way to go about doing it is that you negate every statement, right? Negate every statement. And if you arrive at an option and you find that after you negate it, the conclusion is falling apart, then that is your answer option. Because as I've said, for you to be able to figure out an assumption, figure out which of these has to be true for conclusion to stay put. So if you negate that statement, your conclusion will definitely fall apart, right? So keep that in mind as well. That is another trick to solving assumption questions: negation. Come on, guys, it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult. Hit me up with your answer. So I'll wait for another minute and then I'll begin with the process of elimination and explaining what the passage is about and what we can do to arrive at the right answer. Right. So, what does this passage say? What is this passage saying? It's the passage is saying, now this is where the premise begins. What is the premise? Premise is evidence or reasoning for the conclusion. Right? So the premise says that installing scrubbers and smokestacks and switching to cleaner burning fuel are two methods available to Northern Power for reducing harmful emissions from its plants. Right? So there are two methods to do what? To reduce harmful emissions. One is installing scrubbers, and the second is switching to cleaner burning fuel. These are two methods to reduce harmful emissions. Scrubbers will reduce, now this is additional premise, which is that scrubbers will reduce harmful emissions more than cleaner burning fuels. So this one is better than two, right? In terms of efficiency, one is better than two. Now they are saying, therefore, by installing scrubbers, Northern Power will be doing the most, strong words, will be doing the most that can be done to reduce harmful emissions from its plants. So, what are we saying? Because one is greater than two, by using one, we are doing the most that we can to reduce harmful emissions. Right? This is what your conclusion is. This is where your conclusion begins. Which of the following is an assumption on which the argument depends? So we already know we have to do what? We have to find out the gap in this reasoning. So there is the premise and then there is the conclusion. What is the gap between the premise and the conclusion? That is what we have to figure out. Now, as I said, one trick to solving assumption questions is that you negate every option and then slowly by following the process of elimination, you'll arrive at an answer option by negating which your conclusion totally falls apart, right? So let's negate every option one by one and see whether it is actually affecting the conclusion or not. Number one, switching to cleaner burning fuel will not be more expensive than installing scrubbers. So negating a negative becomes a positive, right? So if we negate this, it becomes switching to cleaner burning fuel will be more expensive than installing scrubbers. Then it totally makes sense that by installing scrubbers, you are doing the most that you can right? So this is not the answer option B. Northern Power can choose from among various kinds of scrubbers, some of which are more effective than others. If we negate this, it becomes Northern Power can't choose from among various kinds of scrubbers, some of which are more effective than others. Again, that does not that tells us about different kinds of scrubbers. That tells us that there are different kinds of scrubbers that exist, but it is not really telling us anything of the comparison between scrubbers and cleaner burning fuel, and whether by installing any kind of scrubber you will be doing the most that you can, right? So answer option B is kind of irrelevant, so we eliminate this. C. Northern Power is not necessarily committed to reducing harmful emissions from its plants. Again, negating a negative becomes a positive. So it becomes Northern Power is necessarily committed to reducing harmful emissions from its plants. Again, so this is talking about the intent. This is talking about the what, whereas the question is about the how, right? The question is how Northern Power will reduce its emissions, and they are saying by installing scrubbers they'll be doing the most that they can. We have to figure out whether they can do more apart from installing scrubbers, right? So C is talking about the intent, C is not talking about the execution, whereas the question is about execution, so we eliminate this as well. Answer option D. Harmful emissions from northern power plants cannot be. So, by negating a negative, what do? You become a positive. So, harmful emissions from northern power's plants can be reduced more by using both methods together than by the installation of scrubbers alone. So, this is clearly making the conclusion totally fall apart, right? So that means this was the gap, that means this was the bridge, right? So we select this answer option. Why? Because understand that your conclusion earlier said that you can only install scrubbers and then that you'll be doing the most that you can. And this answer option tells us that we can use both methods together. Why use only one method? When you've got two methods and you know that one is better than the other, still, why can't you use both? Why are you using only one? Why is there that limitation? So this is poking holes in the argument, and clearly, this is the assumption on which the conclusion depends, that you cannot use both methods together. You only have to use one method, right? So, clearly, this is the answer option. Let's move on to the next question. This is a sentence correction question now. New theories propose that catastrophic impacts of asteroids and comets may have caused reversals in the Earth's magnetic field, the onset of ice ages, splitting apart continents 80 million years ago, and great volcanic eruptions. So we can clearly see that this question has a list of things that can happen, right? So you have to ensure parallelism within the construction of that list, right? So figure out the answer option and hit me up on the chat with your answer. Hi Samya, very good morning. Welcome to the lesson today. Okay, I can just now saw the chat. All right. Okay, Anushka says the answer is answer option B. Let's look at whether B is the correct answer or not. So, what are the different things that new theories propose catastrophic impacts of asteroids and comets include? Number one, may have caused reversals in the Earth's magnetic field. This is the first element in the list. Onset of ice ages, second. Splitting apart continents, third. Okay, Parikshit says A. Let's look at whether A is the correct answer. And fourth is great volcanic eruptions. Just give me a moment. Right, so we clearly have a list that contains how many elements? A list that contains four elements. Right, first is reversals, second is onset, onset of ice ages, third is splitting, right? Then there's the fourth answer option which says great volcanic eruptions. So this is a list of four things, and we can clearly see now. Understand that when we construct words or rather phrases in a manner that says reversals in the Earth's field, onset of ice ages, great volcanic eruptions. So these are noun phrases. These are noun phrases, right? These are what? These are noun phrases. These are not verbs. These are noun phrases. Reversal in something, onset of something, great volcanic eruptions, splitting apart of continents. So these are noun phrases. These are not exactly verbs. Whereas when you look at your answer options, now understand, focus on what the answer options are saying. We have splitting apart continents, or we have split apart continents. Here, splitting and split, these are not nouns, these are verbs. Whereas if we look at the list includes noun phrases. And these are words that, they cause splitting apart continents. They split apart continents. These are verbs. We don't need verbs, we need noun phrases to match the other three elements in our list: reversals, onset, and great volcanic eruptions. So these are noun phrases. So therefore, splitting apart continents cannot be the answer because we need a noun. We don't need a verb. B is giving us that noun. Splitting apart of continents. So here splitting is not a verb, splitting is a noun phrase. That it causes the continents to split apart. Alright. So we'll go with answer option B here and not answer option A, Parikshit. Plus DNE says uh, may have caused continents split apart, may have caused continents that were split apart. You don't cause a continent, you cause something to the continent, or you cause something about continent. You don't cause continent. Understand that whenever you have a parallel list, the entire statement, I'll use another colored marker here to put this point across, the entire sentence, न्यू थ्योरी से लेके कॉज्ड तक, everything applies equally to every other element in the list, right? So may have caused reversals in the Earth's field, may have caused the onset of ice ages, may have caused the splitting apart of continents, may have caused great volcanic eruptions. So if you look at answer options D and E, you need a verb here. You need an extra verb, plus you don't cause continents. You don't cause may have caused continents split apart, or may have caused continents that were split apart. They don't make sense at all. So we eliminate D and E. Plus we eliminated A and C because these are verbs and we don't need a verb, we need a noun phrase. Alright, hope you've understood this explanation. Let's move on to the next question. Another sentence correction question now. George Sand was one of the first European writers to consider the rural poor dash legitimate subjects for literature and portray these with sympathy and respect in her novels. Think about how you construct sentences when you have the word consider. Right? Think on those lines and you'll arrive at the correct answer. How do you construct sentences with consider? Right? What is the idiomatic grammatical construction here? Figure that out. Okay, Parikshit says D and Anushka says it's E. Alright. George Sand or Aurore Lucille Dupin was one of the first European writers to consider the rural poor dash legitimate subjects. Either we have to be, should be, as being, as if, or we don't have anything at all. Right? So understand that whenever we use consider in a way where we are saying, consider this, right? Consider X, consider Y. We don't use prepositions like to be, should be, as if. We don't use all these grammatical constructions. We don't use these prepositions, Parikshit. When we are talking about consider, we never use any preposition at all, right? So the correct construction would be George Sand was one of the first European writers to consider the rural poor legitimate subjects for literature and to portray them. Plus, understand that there was another way to solve this question, right? What did George Sand do? Number one, George Sand considered them something, and number two, George Sand portrayed them, right? So there are two things that George Sand did, right? Again, this was a parallelism question. You had to make two verbs parallel. First verb is to consider. What is the second verb? Second verb here is to portray, right? This is the second thing he did. The first thing he did was he considered them something, and the second thing he did was he portrayed them as something, right? So there are two verbs that had to be parallel here, and if you got that right, if you got that parallelism rule, you would have already eliminated A, क्योंकि यहाँ पे portray है, यहाँ पे भी portray है, यहाँ पे portraying है, यहाँ पे portray है, right? So you would have already eliminated the four options because you needed to consider and to portray to be parallel. You needed them to be parallel, right? So E is the correct answer. Plus, whenever we use consider, we never use prepositions accompanying consider. We always say consider legitimate subjects or consider XYZ. Don't consider as XYZ or consider to be XYZ. Alright? So E is the correct answer. Good job, Anushka. Now, guys, we are entering into a reading comprehension. So, I'll keep every slide on the screen for 90 seconds before I move on to the next paragraph. Right? Focus on summarizing every paragraph in two ways. Number one, what is the subject of the paragraph? And what is the main idea in the paragraph, or rather, the main point of the paragraph? And don't make your summary very long. Ensure that your summary is maximum 4 to 5 words. What is the subject? What is the paragraph talking about? Subject में क्या आएगा? What or who? Who is the paragraph talking about? Main point will be how is the paragraph talking about your subject, or why is the paragraph talking about your subject? All right. Pay attention to these ideas. This is how you summarize every comprehension, right? So reply with a done on the chat once you're done reading the paragraph. Respond on the chat with a done once you're done reading the paragraph and you've summarized it. You know what the subject is of the paragraph and what the main point is. Okay, philosophy is the subject, yes. What is the main point? What is the main point? Look at the paragraph. The conceptions of life and the world, which we call philosophical, are a product of two factors. One is religion, and the second one is science, right? Using this word in its broadest sense, individual philosophers have differed widely in regard to the proportions in which these two factors entered into their systems, but it is the presence of both in some degree that characterizes philosophy. Philosophy is a word that has been used in many ways, some wider, some narrower. Subject philosophy of life. Yes, Parikshit. I propose to use it in a very wide sense, which I will now try to explain. So now you know that the paragraph has began with talking about philosophy, and broadly, this paragraph says that philosophy has two factors. One factor is religion, the second factor is science. Then they explain that to a certain extent, and then the author says, "I propose to use it in a very wide sense, which I will now try to explain." So now we know from the last line, we know that this entire comprehension, the writer or the author of this comprehension will be talking about philosophy, will be explaining different ideas about philosophy. So we can anticipate that in the paragraph now, in the next paragraph. Now read this. What is the subject again? What is the main point? Subject, main point. This is the second paragraph of this comprehension. This comprehension came in the 2002 CAT exam. Guys, you should not be taking more than 60 seconds for every paragraph. Be quick, be quick. Skim through the paragraph quickly. Okay, subject theology and science. Again, Parikshit, understand that subject of the paragraph is what is the paragraph talking about, or who is the paragraph talking about. Philosophy, as I shall understand the word, is something intermediate between theology and science. So the first line itself tells us that the paragraph is still talking about philosophy, that philosophy is between theology and science. then they say there is some similarity. Like theology, it consists of speculation, so far has been asserted, but like science, it appeals to human reason. Right? So now, after the first line, they are drawing similarity between philosophy and theology and science. Right? They are saying that they are similar. Theology is similar to philosophy, and science is also similar to philosophy. And then they say all definite knowledge, so I should contend, belongs to science. All dogma belongs to theology. Now they say all concrete stuff, strong knowledge, definite knowledge is science, dogma is theology. But between theology and science, there is a no man's land. So now they are saying, even though it is similar to the two, still there is a big gap between theology and science, and that gap, that no man's land, is what it is occupied by philosophy. So, yes, I think Anushka's gotten it right that the subject of the paragraph is still philosophy, and that the main point of the paragraph is the comparison, that how philosophy is similar to theology as well as science, and how it is different from the two, and that it exists between the two in a no man's land. Next paragraph. Come on, guys, quickly, quickly. What is the subject? What is the main point of this paragraph? Okay, let's read the paragraph now. I'll read it out loud and I'll tell you how to arrive at the subject and the main point. Almost all the questions of most interest to speculative minds are such as science cannot answer, and the confident answers of theologians no longer seem so convincing as they did in former centuries. So now they are saying that there are quite a lot of questions that can come to speculative minds, and they are saying that almost all of those questions are such questions that science does not have a definite answer. Because remember, साइंस के लिए इन्होंने क्या बोला था, साइंस के लिए इन्होंने बोला था कि साइंस has concrete answers, and then they say one, science does not have answers, and number two, theologians के जो answers हैं वो convincing नहीं है. Then there is the next line: is the world divided into mind and matter? If so, what is mind, what is matter? Is mind subject to matter, or is it possessed of independent powers? What is that? Is the mind subject or is the mind independent? Has the universe any unity or purpose? Universe का कोई purpose है, unity है या नहीं? Is it evolving towards some goal? Are we heading towards something? Are there laws of nature, or do we believe? So now you can clearly see that the first line was talking about how there are so many questions, and then they start talking about all those questions. What are those questions? And then they end by saying that to such questions no answer can be found in lab. So yes, I guess Anushka's got the correct answer, that main point is everything cannot be answered by science, that there are no answers found in a laboratory. And number 2, what is the subject? Subject is questions. There are so many questions that can occur to speculative minds. If we start speculating, we'll have so many questions. So yes, Anushka, you've gotten it right. Let's quickly summarize the fourth paragraph now. This is a short paragraph, guys. Be quick now. Theologians have professed to give answers, alright, all too definite, but their definiteness causes modern minds to view them with suspicion. Right? So now we are talking about, पिछले पैराग्राफ में हमने बोला था आंसर्स लैब में नहीं मिल सकते, और this paragraph begins by saying that theology gives answers that are too definite. The studying of these questions, if not the answering of them, is the business of philosophy. Now they say when you're studying philosophy, you have to study the questions, you don't necessarily have to answer them. Why, then you may ask, waste time on such insoluble problems? Then they say कि हमें ऐसी insoluble means problems that don't have a solution. Why do we need to waste time on problems that are insoluble, that don't have an answer? To this, one may answer as a historian. So now they are saying that if you have to look at these, you have to look at these from the point of view, from the POV of a historian, or as an individual facing the terror of cosmic loneliness. One is either you look at them as a historian, number two, you look at it from the with the motivation of solving existential crisis. Terror of cosmic loneliness क्या होता है? Terror of cosmic loneliness is existentialism. Why do I exist? Right? So now, what is this paragraph saying? The subject of this paragraph is that you there are questions. It is still talking about all these questions in paragraph 3, that all these questions, if you have to give them answers, theology gives two definite answers. So the main point is that theology's answers are too strong. Theology is too strong, too definite, right? Too dogmatic. This is the main point. And what is the subject? Subject is still, they're still talking about answers to the questions that were listed in paragraph 3. All right, that is the subject. That there are questions that interest our mind, right? For example, if you look at the second line, even that is talking about questions. Third line is also talking about questions as insoluble problems. Fourth line is talking about how do we find answer to those questions, right? Now let's move on to paragraph 5. What is the subject? What is the main point? This is a comprehension that was a part of the 2002 CAT exam. Very famous comprehension. Quickly, guys, hit me up on the chat with your answer. What is the subject of this paragraph? What is the point of this paragraph? The answer of the historian is, insofar as I am capable of giving it, will appear in the course of this work. So now they are saying that historian's point of view is something I can give now, and that is what I'll talk about. So now we clearly see that the subject is the historian's point of view, right? That is the subject. The first line only makes it clear. Main point: the whole world depends on theologies. Let's look at whether that is right. Ever since men became capable of free speculation, their actions in innumerable important respects have depended upon their theories as to the world and human life, as to what is good and what is evil. This is as true in the present day as at any former time. To understand an age or a nation, we must understand its philosophy. So, now what are they saying? That to make sense of the human race, we have to. Right, Anushka. The subject is answer of historian. Very, very well done. Historian's POV, historian's point of view, or the answer of the historian. That is the subject. What is the main point, Anushka? To understand an age or a nation, we must understand its philosophy, and to understand its philosophy, we must ourselves be in some degree philosophers. There is here a reciprocal causation. The circumstances of men's lives do much to determine their philosophy, but conversely, their philosophy does much to determine their circumstances. So, again, Parikshit, this entire paragraph did not talk about theology at all. So, how is the main point theology? This entire paragraph talked about philosophy, right? That to make sense of philosophy, to make sense of human race, to make sense of society in general, you must understand the philosophy, right? This is what they say, that we must understand its philosophy to understand an age or a nation. By age, they don't mean age of people, they mean age as time period, age of technology, age of civilization. That is what they mean, right? And when they say men's lives, they don't mean men literally, they mean people in general, right? Understand that when this comprehension was written or authored, we even till date, whenever we want to refer to the human race, we say man is ruining nature. They don't say people are ruining nature, right? So this entire men word, the men, it is a placeholder for the human race, not men literally. All right. So this main point of this paragraph is how, we observe and we understand society, and how philosophy is important to do that. That we, one, we have to understand philosophy, and two, we have to ourselves be some philosophers, right? Again, look at the last sentence. There is a reciprocal causation, cause and effect relationship hai, between circumstances of people uh, having to do much to determine the philosophy of the people. For example, if I am a teacher, right, if I am an educator, then there is, what they are trying to say is that I have a philosophy that will explain why I'm a teacher. And second, they say that their philosophy does much to determine their circumstance as well. And then they say how I think, what my ideology is, what my philosophy is, that will push me to be a teacher, right? So they are establishing a cause and effect relationship. So the main point of this paragraph is understanding and observing philosophy, right? That is the main point of this paragraph. Now let's move on to the last paragraph quickly, and then we'll solve questions pertaining to this reading comprehension. Again, tell me what is the subject and what is the main point. This is the last paragraph in this comprehension. Main point, what philosophy does for us, unlike science and technology. Alright, let's look at the passage. What are they saying? They begin by saying there is also, however, a more personal answer. So we know for a fact that this paragraph is going to talk about the personal answer of the author, right? Whoever wrote this. And I think it was Bertrand Russell who wrote this. I looked it up, I googled it. So this entire comprehension is a paper by Bertrand Russell. And see, this is what management exams do, right? This is what CAT exam does. It will give you very abstract reading comprehensions, topics like psychology, sociology, philosophy, right? You'll get such paragraphs. There is also, however, more personal answer. So the author is going to give us a more personal answer, that science tells us what we can know, but what we can know is little. And if we forget how much we cannot know, we may become insensitive to many things of very great importance. So now they talk about science. Ki this is what science tells us, right? And then they talk about a limitation that comes with science, that you can become insensitive if we trust science a lot. Second, theology on the other hand. Now they are going to tell us about theology. That theology on the other hand induces a dogmatic belief that we have knowledge, where in fact we have ignorance. And by doing so generates a kind of impertinent insolence towards the universe. And now they are talking about the drawback of theology. Uncertainty in the presence of vivid hopes and fears is painful. Now they are saying that uncertainty is painful. Not knowing what is going to happen is painful, but must be endured if we wish to live life without the support of comforting fairy tales. Now they are saying, but uncertainty should be accepted if we want to be realistic in life. It is good either to forget the questions that philosophy asks or to persuade ourselves that we have found indubitable answers to them. Now they are saying that if you ignore philosophical questions, then it is okay. It is okay. But to teach how to live without certainty and yet without being paralyzed by hesitation is perhaps the chief thing that philosophy in our age can still do for those who study it. And now they end the paragraph by actually telling us what philosophy can help us with, or how philosophy can improve our lives, because philosophy will teach us how to live with uncertainty, or how to live without certainty, without getting very scared, without getting very existential. So that is what they are saying, that this is what philosophy teaches us, which science cannot teach us, or which theology cannot teach us. So yes, the subject is philosophy, and main point is what philosophy teaches us, right? Question number 1. Purpose of philosophy is to. Now remember, we have summarized the entire reading comprehension. We know what is the subject and what is the main point of every paragraph, right? So give me the answer, or tell me on the chat to go to a particular paragraph if you think that paragraph has the answer to this question. What is the purpose? What do you think is the purpose of philosophy, guys? Does it reduce uncertainty and chaos? Does it help us to cope with uncertainty and chaos? Help us to find explanations for uncertainty, or reduce the terror of cosmic loneliness? Okay, Parikshit says it's D. Now, Parikshit, remember, I can guess why you went with option D, because there was this entire phrase, terror of cosmic loneliness, is used in the comprehension, right? So, this must have rung some alarm bells in your mind. Now, how was this used? How was this used? Where was terror of cosmic loneliness used? 1 minute. Again, look at this line. To this, one may answer as a historian or as an individual facing the terror of cosmic loneliness. So they said that if you have to study philosophy, you are someone either who is approaching philosophy from the point of view of a historian, or from the point of view of someone who is facing the terror of cosmic loneliness. Never did they said reduce the terror of cosmic loneliness. Reduce is not mentioned here. They are saying if you're facing the terror of cosmic loneliness, you can study philosophy. They did not talk about reducing the terror. Alright, whereas, look at this last paragraph. To teach how to live without certainty. That means they are talking about how, look at this. Look at this. Um, Uncertainty in the presence of vivid hopes and fears is painful, but must be endured. Must be endured matlab must be lived with. You must live with uncertainty. And then the last line says to teach how to live without certainty. So they are teaching us how to live without certainty. They are teaching us how to cope with uncertainty and ambiguity. They are not talking about reducing. They're not talking about explanations, because remember the paragraph said you must study philosophy for these questions. The paragraph did not say that you must study philosophy to arrive at answers, because they were saying science gives us answers, theology gives us answers, but those answers are not the correct answers. You have to study the questions. So they don't tell you that purpose of philosophy is to give you answers, to give you explanations. Purpose of the philosophy is to help us cope with uncertainty and ambiguity. Good answer, Anushka. Well done. So A, C, and D are incorrect, and B is the correct answer. Let's move on to the next question. Based on the passage, what can be concluded about the relation between philosophy and science? Based on the passage, what can be concluded about the relationship between philosophy and science? Guys, come on. What is your intuitive answer? What is an intuitive guess? What is your intuitive guess, guys? I'll take you to the paragraph. Philosophy is between theology and science. Philosophy is like theology, philosophy is like science, but philosophy exists between science and theology in a no man's land. This is what they said, right? So, the author did not say they are antagonistic at all. The author did not say there is no relationship between the two, because the author said philosophy is like science, but philosophy exists between the space of science and theology. If this is science and if this is theology, this space is occupied by philosophy, right? So the author did not say that there is no relationship. Again, the author did not say that philosophy derives from science. डी का क्या मतलब है? That this is a blanket और इसके बहुत सारे parts हैं, right? डी का मतलब है this blanket is science and one such part is philosophy, which is again false. This is not what the author said. The author did say that they are related, they are similar, yet they are different, yet they are separate. So the author said they are complementary. All right, this is what it means, that science and philosophy are complementary. All right. Option C. Follow the process of elimination, guys. Follow the process of elimination. He is most likely not to be. Remember, this is what they are asking you. Okay, we have fast math tricks saying it's option B. Alright, let's wait for the others to answer as well and then I'll explain it. What are the facts here? Facts here are that the author is number one talking about philosophy, that we are talking about philosophy as the subject. Number two, the author gave answers from historians' point of view, right? Number three, author talked about science and author talked about theology, right? So clearly, this means there are chances that author is a philosopher. There are chances that author is a historian, and then he talked about science and theology. But if you read the paragraph properly, if you read the passage very nicely, very in a very focused way, you would have seen that the author talks about science, but the author totally dismisses theology, right? What is the tone of the author when the author is talking about science as compared to tone of the author when the author is talking about theology? The author is very dismissive of theology. The author talks about theology in a very bad light, that theology gives you dogmatic beliefs, that you get very stuck up if you approach philosophy or approach the questions of life from a theological perspective, right? So therefore, it is, if you follow the process of elimination, you can arrive at theologian as an answer, that the author is most likely not to be a theologian. The author is talking about a historian's perspective, so there are chances he could be an historian, he could be a historian. The author is talking about philosophy in grave detail, so that means the author could be a philosopher as well. The author is giving you differences and similarities between science and philosophy, so the author could be scientist as well. But the author is totally dismissing theology. That means he's most likely not to be a theologian. All right. Last question from the passage now. According to the author, which of the following statements about the nature of the universe must be true? Remember, there was a paragraph that is totally giving us the nature of the universe or the questions that we have pertaining to the universe, right? Is mind subject to matter? Has the universe any unity or perspective? Is it evolving towards some goal? Are there really laws of nature, right? So there was a paragraph with an entire set of questions. Which of the following must be definitely true? Must be definitely true is the question. All right. So let's look at all the answer options and follow the process of elimination. One is universe has unity, the second is universe has purpose, the third is universe is evolving towards a goal, right? Now you're saying option C. All right, let's look at the paragraph again. What is the paragraph saying? The paragraph is saying that there are speculative questions, right? Is the world divided into mind and matter? Is mind subject to matter? Has the universe any unity? Again, this is covering one option. Has the universe any unity? Second, is it evolving towards some goal? Third, is there any order of nature or a law of nature? right? Is living merely futile, right? Must be right. Is there such a thing as wisdom? Now look at the last sentence. To such questions, no answer can be found in the lab. What are they saying? That these are all questions, but there is no answer to all these questions. So yes, Anushka, you've gotten it right. None of these None of these must definitely be true. They are talking about questions pertaining to unity, pertaining to purpose, pertaining to evolving towards a goal. But the paragraph, in very explicit terms, said that no answers can be found to these questions. So, none of these is the correct answer. Good job, Anushka. So, guys, this entire comprehension was a part of the 2002 CAT exam. So this must have given you some perspective as to how you have to solve comprehensions. Approach comprehension paragraph from paragraph, like we did, right? And for every paragraph, note down what is the subject, what is the main point, and summarize it in 4 to 5 words, not a lot of words. Summarize in very clear and succinct manner, and then move on to solve all questions and follow the process of elimination in every question. This is how you have to approach reading comprehension. Now, solve this critical reasoning question. I'll just go and get myself a glass of water. I'll be back in a minute. Solve this critical reasoning question by then. All right, I am back. Right. So, which of the following goal would be most important to know and determine whether Tancrop's plan, if implemented, is likely to achieve its goal? So, this is a question where you have to evaluate a plan. Evaluate a plan, right? Argument evaluation question. So let's look at the passage. Trancorp currently transports all its goods to Burnland Island by truck. So currently our means of transportation is by truck. The only bridge over the channel separating Burnland from the mainland is congested and trucks typically spend hours in traffic. So now they are telling us कि हम लोग truck transportation currently use करते हैं but बहुत घंटे लग जाते हैं when we have to transport over a bridge. Trains can reach the channel more quickly. Okay. You say answer option A. Alright, let's look at whether you've gotten it right or not. Trains can reach the channel more quickly than trucks. There now they are saying trains are more efficient and freight cars can be transported to Berlin by barges that typically cross the channel in an hour. So barges basically are a type of boat. ठीक है, बार्जेस का मतलब एक तरह की बोट होता है जिसके ऊपर हम लोग फ्रेट ट्रांसपोर्ट करते हैं. So now they are saying freight cars can be transported to Berlin by barges that typically cross the channel in an hour. ठीक है. Therefore, to reduce shipping time, Trancop plans to switch to trains and barges to transport goods to Berlin. So now they are saying हम लोग bridge पे नहीं जाएंगे from truck because we spend hours on a bridge. So therefore we are going to use trains and then we are going to use boat to basically cross the channel. राइट. सो दिस इज व्हाट दे आर सेइंग कि हम लोग ट्रक्स की जगह ट्रेन और बार्जेस यूज करेंगे. व्हाई? सो दैट वी कैन स्पेंड लेस टाइम डूइंग ऑल दिस. राइट नाउ वी स्पेंड आवर्स बिकॉज द ब्रिज इज वेरी वेरी कंजेस्टेड. If we use trains and boats, that will be more efficient. Which of the following most important to know whether this plan is likely to achieve its goal? What is the goal? To reduce time. Right, the goal is to reduce time. So if there is an answer option that tells us that, you know what, maybe it will take equally a long time or longer time, then that tells us that, you know what, okay, we don't have to go ahead with this plan. Right, let's look at all the answer options and follow the process of elimination. Option A, whether transportation by train and barge would be substantially less expensive than transportation by truck. uh, you know what, in the entire passage, not once were we talking about expenses. Nowhere is the word expenses mentioned, right? So this is irrelevant. This is out of scope because the paragraph did not talk about expenses at all. So why do I have to talk about expenses? Let's look at another option. Understand, the answer option is talking about time, right? The answer, the question, the passage is talking about time. That right now it is taking me a long time to do this task. So if I use a train and a boat, maybe I'll use less time. So we are talking about time, we are not talking about money. Answer option B. Whether there are boats that can make the trip between mainland and Berlin faster than bridges can. Uh, Again, faster than barges. Barges are also a kind of boat. Again, understand that we are talking about kinds of boats here. Abhi, kinds of boats is irrelevant again. B is not the correct answer. Why? Because B is talking about different kinds of boats. We are not concerned with different kinds of boats right now. We are concerned with train and boat. Barges are also boats. They are saying, what if I use other boats that are faster? Alright, go ahead, use those boats. But right now I have to determine whether using trains and barges or boats is better than using trucks. So I need an answer option that gives me a comparison between trucks and between trains and barges, not between different kinds of boats. Alright. C, whether loading the freight cars onto barges is very time consuming. Alright. Now this is kind of an answer option that is logically making sense to me. ये लोग क्या बोल रहे हैं? इन लोगों ने बोला कि हम लोग फ्रेट कार यूज करके ट्रक से क्या कहते हैं, ट्रेन से बार्जेस में अपना सामान डालेंगे. नाउ दे आर सेइंग what if this is very time consuming? If this is very time consuming, what if the time that I am saving by not using a truck to travel over a bridge? Imagine कि पहले मेरे को 10 घंटे लगते थे. ठीक है, पहले मेरे को 10 घंटे लग रहे हैं. अब मैं कह रहा हूं कि भाई अगर मैं ट्रेन यूज करूंगा और मैं बोट यूज करूंगा तो मेरे को 5 घंटे लगेंगे. ठीक है, मैं ट्रेन और बोट यूज करूंगा तो मेरे को 5 घंटे लगेंगे. ट्रक यूज कर रहा था तो मेरे को 10 आवर्स लग रहे थे. राइट. Imagine this answer option is telling me that loading freight cars onto barges is very time consuming. What if, you know, loading this onto the barge taking me 5 more hours? तो जहां पे मैंने 5 घंटे बचाए थे, क्योंकि पहले मेरे को 10 घंटे लग रहे थे, अब मेरे को 5 घंटे लग रहे हैं, तो अगर मैं 5 घंटे बचा रहा हूं, व्हाट इफ मेरे वो 5 घंटे फ्रेट कार लोड करने में जा रहे हैं, तो मेरा फायदा क्या हुआ? राइट. वाई स्विच माई प्लान? Why use trains and boats if the 5 hours that I could have saved are the 5 hours that are going into this plan as well? Right? So C is the correct answer. D, whether the average number of vehicles, we are not concerned with average number of vehicles and we are not concerned with what is happening in the past few years. We are concerned with what is happening right now. So this is irrelevant as well. E, whether most trucks return to mainland empty, we are not concerned with how trucks return. We are concerned with how trucks go. All right. So E is irrelevant as well. Yes, Parikshit, you've gotten it right. C is the correct answer. Let's move on to another critical reasoning question now. Which of the following, if true, provides the strongest grounds for the official's prediction? Again, you what do you have to look? You have to look for support. आर्ग्यूमेंट पढ़ो और इसमें से जो भी ऑप्शन अपने आर्ग्यूमेंट के कंक्लूजन को सपोर्ट करेगा दैट इज द आंसर. व्हाट इज द आर्ग्यूमेंट? क्राउडिंग ऑन मूरविल सबवे फ्रीक्वेंटली लीड्स टू डिलेज. ठीक है, सबवे मतलब मेट्रो टाइप सर्विस है. बिकॉज इट इज डिफिकल्ट फॉर पैसेंजर्स टू एग्जिट फ्रॉम द ट्रेन. सबवे राइडरशिप इज प्रोजेक्टेड टू इंक्रीज बाय 20%. तो 20% अपना बढ़ेगा सबवे राइडरशिप over the next 10 years. 20% in 10 years. All right. Moorville Transit Authority plans to increase the number of daily train trips by only 5%. तो x अगर ट्रेन ट्रिप्स है तो वो x प्लस 5% हो जाएगा. Officials predict that this increase is sufficient to ensure that the incidence of delays due to crowding does not increase. तो वो कह रहे हैं हमारी राइडरशिप बढ़नी है 20%, बट अगर हम लोग ट्रेन की ट्रिप्स 5% बढ़ा देंगे तो क्राउडिंग नहीं होगी. अभी क्राउडिंग होती है क्योंकि पैसेंजर्स को एग्जिट करने में बहुत ज्यादा टाइम लग जाता है. So we have to support this, that if you increase the trips by 5%, your crowding will not go up at all. Right? Even if this 20% is increasing, it will not cause crowding and it will not cause delays. This is what you have to look for. Follow the process of elimination, guys. Look at an answer option that tells you that you know what, this plan will actually work. Okay, D. All right, Parikshit, thank you for your answer. Let's look at all the answer options. By changing maintenance schedules, the transit authority can achieve the 5% increase without purchasing any new subway cars. So now, this answer option is telling me what? This is telling me कि यार, it is telling me the how. क्योंकि 5% इंक्रीज की तो बात उन्होंने पैसेज में पहले ही कर दी है. सो दे आर टेलिंग मी हाउ दे विल इंक्रीज द 5%, विच आई एम नॉट कंसर्न विद. आई एम कंसर्न विद वेदर this plan will work or not work. B. The Transit Authority also plans a 5% increase in the number of bus trips on routes that connect to subways. यार इससे तो मेरी क्राउडिंग बढ़ जाएगी. How? Because imagine if you are going, if you live near a subway platform or if you live near local train network or metro train network, if you have public transport that is actually going to the metros or going to the local trains, then your number of people using metros or local trains will logically go up because they are getting public transport to get there. So this is actually weakening the prediction instead of strengthening the prediction. C. For most computers who use the subway system, there is no practical alternative public transportation available. Again, this does not tell me whether this plan will work or not. Alright, this is irrelevant. D. Most of the projected increase in ridership is expected to occur in off-peak hours when trains are now sparsely used. Yes, Parikshit, yes, Anushka, I think the both of you have gotten it right because they are telling me that ये जो ridership बढ़ेगी 20%, ये बढ़ेगी ऑफ पीक आवर्स में. तो अगर ऑफ पीक आवर्स में बढ़ रही है और मैं ट्रेन की ट्रिप्स भी बढ़ा रहा हूं तो आइडियली स्पीकिंग क्राउडिंग शुड नॉट हैपन एंड डिलेज शुड नॉट हैपन बिकॉज ridership is only going up in the off peak hours when seats are already empty. If seats are already empty and ridership goes up, that means there is no overcrowding, right? So E, the 5% increase in the number of train trips can be achieved without an equal increase in operational costs. We are not concerned with operational costs at all. So D looks to be the perfect answer. Good job, guys. Let's solve a sentence correction question now. None of the attempts to specify the causes of crime explains why most of the people exposed to the alleged causes do not commit crimes, and conversely why so many of those not so exposed have. What are you comparing here? What are you comparing? This is a comparison question. What are you comparing? Keep that in mind and remember that we compare apples with apples, we don't compare apples with oranges. Look at this. No, why most of the people exposed to the alleged causes do not commit crimes. Conversely, why so many people, those not so exposed, what? One is we are comparing people who do commit crimes with people who do not commit crimes, right? Come on, guys. Come on, come on, come on. We have a very clear answer here. People who do not commit crimes versus people who could. Okay, let's follow the. None of the attempts to specify the causes of crime explains why most of the people exposed to the alleged causes do not commit crimes, and conversely, why so many of those not so exposed commit crimes, right? Do not commit crimes versus commit crimes. So we need a word out of these that expresses that people not so exposed commit crimes. Do not commit crimes versus do commit crimes. All right, and because we have commit crimes in the sentence before, we don't need to repeat this. So we'll simply say why so many people, those not so exposed, do. डू नॉट के साथ डू ही आएगा, डू नॉट के साथ हैव नहीं आएगा, हैज नहीं आएगा, शैल भी नहीं आएगा, कुड भी नहीं आएगा. Since we have do not in the sentence before, we'll maintain parallelism and we'll say do. Alright? Next question. This is a very important bold face questions. These are kind of tricky typically when it comes to reasoning questions. Understand what the passage is telling you. Hunter says many people blame hunters alone for the decline in Green Rock National Forest's deer population over the past 10 years. Yet clearly matlab tone of the statement is changing. Yet clearly, black bears have also played an important role in this decline. In the past 10 years, the forest's protected black bear population has risen, and examination of black bears found dead in the forest during the deer hunting season showed that a number of them had recently fed on deer. What is the premise? What is the conclusion? What is the argument? Understand that, and then you will be able to analyze what role the portion in boldface plays. You have to figure out what is the role of this boldface in the entire passage. Try to figure out what the hunter is trying to say. ठीक है, ये हंटर के शब्द हैं. हंटर हमको क्या बोल रहा है? हंटर हमको कह रहा है कि बहुत लोग, पीपल हैव बीन ब्लेमिंग हंटर्स फॉर द डिक्लाइन इन द डियर पॉपुलेशन. सो पीपल currently are blaming hunters is what this hunter says. And then he says that, you know what, we are not the only ones. There are black bulls, black bears who have also played an important role. And what have black bears been doing? Black bears की population बढ़ गई है because they are being protected in the forest. And when you find dead black bears, you will be able to figure out that, you know, these black bears have been feeding on deers. मतलब ये क्या कह रहे हैं कि we are not the only ones to be blamed. Black bears are also the ones to be blamed because black bears have been eating deer. This is what the hunter is saying. That don't blame me, don't blame my people, blame black bears also because they are eating deer. All right. So Anushka says answer option E. Let's look at all the options by following the process of elimination. तो हमको क्या पता है? हमको पता है हंटर कह रहे हैं कि भाई हमको पूरा ब्लेम मत डालो because even black bears have been eating deer. They are the ones to be blamed as well. Right? A. It is the main conclusion of the argument. No, it is not the main conclusion of the argument. The main conclusion of the argument is that even black bears have been eating deer. Right? Main conclusion is not that people blame us. B. It is a finding that the argument seeks to explain. No, the argument seeks to explain the decline in the population. The argument seeks to explain the decline in deer population by giving us a reason for it. The argument does not seek to explain why people blame hunters. So we eliminate B. C. It is an explanation that the argument concludes is correct. No, the argument does not conclude this to be correct. The argument concludes that black bear are responsible for decline in deer population. That is what the argument concludes. D. It provides evidence in support of the. It is not supporting the main conclusion, right? It is not evidence at all. Evidence is this, that number of them had recently fed on deer. That is the evidence. People blaming hunters is not the evidence. It introduces a judgment that the argument opposes. Yes. Yes, Parikshit. Yes, Anushka, you've gotten it right. This there. What is the hunter saying? Hunter is saying people blame us, and then the hunter is giving you an opposite explanation that people, you should not be blaming me. You should be blaming black bear. Right. So E is the correct answer. Good job, guys. Well done. Let's solve a sentence correction question now. Okay, Parikshit say E as well. Diabetes, together with its serious complications, rank as the nation's third leading cause of death, surpassed only by heart disease and cancer. So, Parikshit, if you'd have, so go through some of my sentence correction videos on this channel. Uh, the initial videos, they talk about the rules of sentence correction, and one such rule is of additive phrases. All right, one such rule is what? Rule of additive phrases. That whenever we use phrases like together with, right? Together with, along with. Then there are phrases like in addition to. Then there is phrase like as well as. तो जब भी हम लोग ये यूज कर रहे होते हैं ना कि x together with y, x along with y, x with y, x in addition to y, x as well as y. तो जब भी हम additive phrases use करते हैं, whenever we use these additive phrases, the verb, the verb which is rank here, this is the verb in your sentence. The verb takes the form of the first noun which is x. तो हमेशा जो आपका वर्ब है, अगर आपका x प्लूरल है तो वर्ब भी प्लूरल होगा, x सिंगुलर है तो वर्ब भी सिंगुलर होगा. So whenever we talk about additive phrases, the verb has to be in agreement with x, the first noun or the noun phrase. All right. तो यहाँ पे जो rank है, this is plural, right? Whenever you have a verb which is without an s or an es, क्योंकि अगर आप अपने वर्ब के आगे एस या ईएस लगाते हो, अगर आपका वर्ब बन जाएगा रैंक्स, देन इट विल बी सिंगुलर, बट राइट नाउ इट इज प्लूरल. वेर एज डायबिटीज इज वन डिसीज, so diabetes is singular. All right, so your verb, it has to be singular. So I'll eliminate options A, D as well as E because all of them are plural. And my verb, it has to be singular. So either I'll go with option B or I'll go with option C. Ranks as the nation's third leading cause of death, surpassed only. Has the rank of the nation's third leading cause of death only surpassed. Now I am talking about the placement of only. What does only tell me? So whenever we have a doubt when it comes to the usage of lonely or usage of only, think of it as a modifier. That what is only modifying? I'll give you an example. The difference between I went only to the market. And the second sentence is I only went to the market. Right? What is the difference between these two sentences? The difference is very, very subtle. एक में आपका जो only है, that is modifying what? That is modifying market. Whereas this only is modifying went. I only went to the market. I went only to the market. So that means here, when in the first sentence I say I went only to the market, that means that you know what? There are 10 things I did, but out of those 10 things, I went only to the market. Right? I did XYZ things, I did ABC things, but when it came to going out of my house, I went only to the market. And the second sentence says, I only went to the market. So now it is what? It is modifying your verb. When it is modifying your verb, that means there is only one thing you did. The first sentence says, I went only to the market, but it is saying that, you know what, there are 10 things I was doing. Out of those 10 things, one thing was, I went to the market. Whereas in the second one, where the word only is modifying the verb, that means that I only did one thing, which is I went to the market. Similarly, here your only is modifying surpassed, whereas here you're only is modifying what? You're only is modifying heart disease and cancer, right? So option B gives me the correct meaning, because option B tells me that, you know what, there is this disease diabetes, and it is surpassed only by heart disease and cancer. मतलब खाली हार्ट डिसीज और कैंसर डायबिटीज के आगे हैं, और भी बहुत सारे डिसीजेज हैं जो डायबिटीज के पीछे हैं, बट डायबिटीज से आगे क्या है? हार्ट डिसीज है और कैंसर है. Whereas in option C, the meaning is changing because now they are saying only surpassed by heart disease and cancer. मतलब जो और डिसीजेज हैं उनसे कोई लेना देना ही नहीं है. वी आर नॉट इवन टॉकिंग अबाउट देम, वी डोंट इवन कंसिडर देम. आई से डायबिटीज इज ओनली सरपास बाय हार्ट डिसीज एंड कैंसर. देर इज नो अदर डिसीज इन द पिक्चर ओनली, which changes the meaning, right? So that is why I'll eliminate option C. I'll go with option B. And Parikshit, always remember the rule of additive phrases, that your verb has to reflect the first noun, which is your X, when it comes to all these additive phrases. All right, let's solve another sentence correction question now. Okay, Parikshit says option B. All right, let's look at this. Carnivorous mammals can endure what would otherwise be lethal levels of body heat because they have a heat exchange network which kept the brain from getting too hot. So we clearly can see that the entire sentence is in present tense, right? Can endure, they have. So यहाँ भी हमारा क्या होना चाहिए? Present tense होना चाहिए. Plus, if you remember the rule of tenses, whenever we are talking about facts of life, whenever we're talking about facts of life, or we're talking about what, we are talking about universal uh, truths. For example, sun rises in the east, sun sets in the west, so that is a universal truth, that is a fact of life. Whenever we are talking about habit, whenever we're talking about habit, I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, or I go for a run every day, so that is a habit. So whenever we're talking about these three things, always use what? Always use simple present tense. And this sentence is also talking about what? The sentence is talking about a fact. It's talking about what's true for carnivorous mammals, that they can endure what would otherwise be lethal levels of body heat, because what? Because they have a heat exchange network that keeps the brain from getting too hot. So it is a fact, it is a universal truth about carnivorous mammals. So it will always be simple present. Plus, the other tenses in the sentence are also simple present. Good job, guys. This is the last question for the day now. A critical reasoning question. Let's solve this and we'll be done for the day. So let's read the passage out loud now. Anushka says option A. Alright, let's look at the answer. Contrary to earlier predictions, demand for sugarcane has not increased in recent years. So what are they saying? That demand has not gone up. Demand is stable. Yet, even though prices and production amounts have also been stable, so price and production is stable, demand is stable. Sugarcane growers last year increased their profits by more than 10% over the previous year's level. So, what are they saying? They are saying demand, production, and price तीनों चीजें स्टेबल हैं, फिर भी अपन का क्या हुआ है, अपना प्रॉफिट बढ़ गया है. Our profits have gone up by more than 10%. Now they are saying any of the following statements, if true, helps to explain the rise in profits except. So out of these five, four give us the reason for the profit going up. Alright, so let's look at all the options. Rainfall in sugarcane growing areas were. Now understand कि आपका profit कैसे बढ़ता है. If you guys have studied economics or if you guys have studied some bits of management or commerce, you would know profits go up by two reasons. One is cost goes down, कॉस्ट नीचे जाता है, या आपका कंजम्पशन बढ़ता है तो आपका क्या बढ़ता है, आपका रेवेन्यू बढ़ता है. सो इधर कंजम्पशन इंक्रीजेस और कॉस्ट गोज डाउन. दैट इज हाउ योर प्रॉफिट्स गो अप. ऑलराइट, सो कीप दीज इन माइंड एज वी लुक थ्रू ऑल द ऑप्शंस. ऑप्शन ई, rainfall in sugarcane growing regions was higher than it had been, allowing the growers to save money on expensive artificial irrigation. So if you're saving money, your cost is going down, therefore your profit is increasing. So this is correct. Many small sugarcane growers joined together to form an association and began to buy supplies at low group rates. So now again, your cost is going down. Why? Because you're buying stuff at wholesale rates, at low group rates, right? So even this is a reason for profit going up. C, the price of oil, major energy source used by sugarcane growers in harvesting, dropped by 20%. तो आपको हार्वेस्ट करने में तेल लगता है, तेल का प्राइस गिर गया है. That means your cost of operations are going down. That means your profits are going up. So again, this is a reason. Sugarcane growers have saved money on wages by switching from paying laborers and hourly to paying them by the amount. Again, they have saved money on wages. That means the cost of production has gone down. So this is also a reason for profits going up. Parikshit, understand what the question is asking you. Any of the following statements, if true, helps to explain the rise in profits except. So you have to look for an option that does not explain the rise in profits. E is giving you a reason for rise in profits. How? Because E is saying we are saving money. If we are saving money, then our cost is going down. If our cost is going down, our profits are going up. Alright, so this explains the rise in profits. But हमें ये नहीं चाहिए, हमें चाहिए except वाला case. Alright, so B, C, D, E all are giving me reason for the cost going down. All of them are giving me reason for the cost going down. Right? So if the cost is going down, my profit is going up. Let me look at option A now. Many countries that are large consumers of sugarcane increase their production based ethanol. Sugarcane based ethanol की production बढ़ गई है, yet their overall consumption of sugarcane decreased. So now मेरे को पता है मेरे profit बढ़ेंगे अगर मेरा consumption बढ़ेगा, right? मेरा consumption बढ़ेगा तो rotation in the market sugarcane का बढ़ जाएगा. But मेरा consumption कम हुआ है, तो अगर मेरा consumption कम हो रहा है तो मेरा profit कम होगा. So A is the only one that does not explain the rise in profits. B, C, D, E, all options are giving me reasons for rise in profit. A is giving me a reason for decline in profit, right? So A is the only correct answer. I hope you've understood this, Parikshit. So guys, with this, we come to the end of today's lesson. We solved quite a lot of reading comprehension questions, critical reasoning questions, sentence correction questions, right? We did quite a lot of that. So tomorrow again, I'll be conducting a hackathon where we'll spend quite a lot of time solving all these types of questions. Join me again at 10 a.m. tomorrow, 10 a.m. sharp. We'll begin with the lesson. Also, I am taking a crash course on reading comprehension and critical reasoning on the Unacademy app. Right? So look me up. I am Prankur Arora. Look me up. If you wish to enroll in that course, do enroll in that course. Otherwise, I'll see you again tomorrow, same time, 10 a.m. on the YouTube live. Right? So, till then, guys, stay safe, stay strong, stay mellow. Thank you. Thank you for attending today's lesson. I hope you had fun.